So I decided in 2020 at the end, I'm like, I let this whole year go by with all of this extra time that I had, and I did nothing with it. Shame on me, other than resting. So I was like, I will not enter 2021 with the same time and not do something.
Hey Queens, yeah you know who you are. God, come on. Go ahead and put that crown on your head. Now tilt a little to the left, now a little to the right. Perfect. Now let's get to work, cause we know you got big goals, and you got big dreams and not afraid to let them know. Why? Cause you step into your purpose. You speak out on your faith, and you shift up in your journey, cause you a boss. Welcome to the podcast, Drop the Expire and Act with your host, Belly of QueenBayGoals.com, reminding you that you are a queen before anything else. It's your life and your goals. Make it royal. All right, y'all. Go ahead and work that crown. Hey Queen Bays, welcome to another episode of the Drop the Aspire Night podcast. Today we are talking to Twiana Edwards. And what I love is she's just in the beginning of her journey. So if you are a podcast host or you're thinking about starting a podcast, this is definitely the episode that you need to listen to, because she's right at the start. So she can tell you all the fears, all the stuff that she's been through, but I'm not going to steal her thunder. So she can tell you all about it. So Twiana, can you give us a little bit about yourself and your podcast?
Okay, so I am a mother of three, and I struggled with coming up with different ideas for a podcast. I've been trying to do a podcast since 2017. And one of the things that I struggled with the most was needing to have somebody do it with me, right? I really struggled with like needing a partner. So I decided in 2020 at the end, I'm like, I let this whole year go by with all of this extra time that I had, and I did nothing with it. Shame on me, other than resting. So I was like, I will not enter 2021 with the same time and not do something. So I launched Poor Mom Podcast, which is an interactive podcast that encourages women to not take motherhood so serious. I think that we have all these pressures to make perfect human beings. And the reality is, I mean, if you take a look at your own life, you probably went against so many things your mom and dad told you. And the interactive pieces, it's a drinking game that comes with this. And I also do a YouTube channel where I make my favorite cocktail and mocktails and talk more.
Okay, so I need to go definitely check out that YouTube channel. So what were your fears going into the podcast? Because I know you said you wanted to wait for somebody else, but what other fears did you have?
You know, one of my biggest fears was, who's going to listen to me? Who's going to care what I have to say? And I allowed that fear to stop me and stifle my voice for so long, because you're like, you know, how do I do this? How do I actually get people to buy into what I'm selling?
Right.
And that was probably one of my biggest fears. Like, who's my audience? Who's gonna care about this unknown person, Twiana Edwards? Nobody gonna care about me. So that was one of my biggest fears. Yeah.
So tell us how did you get over that? How did you just say, okay, I'm not gonna worry about this anymore, I'm just gonna do it?
It was coming to the realization that I'm seeking validation in people I don't even know.
Right.
I'm seeking validation from everybody instead of just trusting in my ability. I researched podcasts, part of groups, learned the craft so much that when I actually did it, I was like, I know what I'm doing. Like, what? Like, this is like a cakewalk. Like, I thought that it was going to be so much more challenging. And I'm like, man, I could have been doing this 3 years ago and probably making money by now.
I'm right there with you because I wanted to start a podcast in 2018 and I didn't start mine until 2020. So I'm right there with you.
Congratulations. It's that leap, right? It's taking that first step to say, I got this. Like, and if I fail or if it's not what I think it's supposed to be, I can stop and start another one.
Exactly. Exactly. See, and we get caught up in our heads so much that we don't even think about that. And I love that you said that because the other part about failing, which I talked about in last season of the podcast, guys, the part about failing that you need to understand is that once you get to that point where you fail, all you have to do is learn from the situation and then move forward. It's only a failure if you stop. Like once you stop and you don't do anything else, then that's a failure. But if you learn and you move forward, it's not a failure. It's just a bump on the road to your success.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Denzel Washington calls it failing up. Like you
right,
have to fail up. And when he said that, I mean, I spent a year listening to motivational speeches, trying to pump myself up to do this. And when he said, you got to fail up, I'm like, wait a minute. So there is failing. Failing happens. How many times did, any person that you can think of that started a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar business. Mm-hmm. Jeff Bezos started Amazon in 1997. When did you hear about it? Wasn't in 1997 for sure. How long did he fail before he found the right formula? So it's what you said. It's learning from your mistakes and then improving. What can I do?
What do you say to somebody who is still in their aspiring phase and not ready to jump out and become the podcast host? What do you say to that person to push them out of that space?
It's so simple. Do it. Just do it. Just even if you just do a trial run, just do it. Because once you at least take that first step and you record something, I recorded myself just talking because I'm like, I know how to, I talk all the time, but what do I sound like when I'm speaking? Mm-hmm. And that was the beginning phases. Just do it. Everybody has an audience. There's an audience for everybody out there. So you just have to don't psych yourself out. Just take one small step. And even if it's just recording yourself.
I love that. I love that advice. So tell us, where can we find your podcast? Where can we find your YouTube channel?
Okay, so my podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify. I'm still working on some other places, but right now, and Podbean, the YouTube channel, and everything is Pour Mom. That's POURMOM ! Because mothers are the excitement to every family. And it's Pour Mom Podcast, and then it's also Pour Mom YouTube channel. So it's just Pour Mom for the YouTube channel.
And you guys, check it out. You guys, all the links will be below, but you have to check it out. I listened to one of her episodes in the beginning where she starts talking to the teacher calling about virtual classrooms, and I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is hilarious. I thought it was so funny when I listened to it. So you guys, make sure you check it out. So before we end the podcast, I always end with a quote. But this one I'm going to do a little differently because I love her quote, which is from Michelle Obama. When they go low, we go high, which is the quote that you gave. But what I want to really end with is what you put in the advice column. So I'm going to share it with you guys. And you wrote, happiness is like a champagne waterfall. If you pour into yourself, everything around you will begin to fill up. So pour into yourself until your cup runs over. I love that. So where did you find that? Or did you just come up with it?
I came up with that because, you're a mom, I'm a mom. We tend to give so much to our family. And I had this moment last year where it was like the overwhelmingness of virtual learning and life. And I just had a breakdown. And I'm like, wait a minute, how do I shift that? I need to focus on my happiness because when I'm happy, everybody's happy. It's the happy wife, happy life, happy mom, happy life. And and I thought about the champagne glass and I'm like, you know what? That's it. That's my I'll forever think that and say that to myself to ensure that I am keeping my happiness is number one. I'm still a human. I'm still a person.
Yeah, you need to print that off, put it in your room, put it on a shirt, because I love it. Because I'm like, I'm not even going with the code. I'm going with this.
Yeah.
I love it. So thank you guys for listening to another episode of the Drop the Aspire Night podcast. Like Twiana says, if you're ready to start your podcast and you've been researching, you've been doing all the things but starting, just do it. Just start. All right, you guys. So make sure you come back and listen to another episode. We have more great guests this season. Thank you, Twiana.
Thank you.
You have been listening to another episode of Drop the Aspiring Act. If you're looking for more information on this podcast and other episodes, please visit queenbaegoals.com. That's QueenBaeGoals.com. All right, y'all. I'll see you in the next podcast.